So the leg and arm wraps are going to be done in this raw sienna colour by Montmart that I use a lot. I was watching some YouTubes on the Bamboo Studios controversy with the changes that they've decided to make for security upgrades of their software, and was interested to see if it will affect me in any way because I own a Bamboo Labs printer. But the changes that they're making for the most part seem to be affecting people that use third-party software to connect to their Bamboo printer. So in other words, instead of using the Bamboo Studio, the software that comes for the printer, using other software. Now, I don't, I use the Bamboo Studio software, so I'm not expecting any immediate change to myself. But one of the concerning things that they do is, Bamboo Labs sells printer filament as well as printers, and their printer filament comes with RFID tags, and there has been a lot of concern that they're going to make people use just their filament. I've never actually printed with their filament. I assume it's a good quality product, but because I don't have their AMS set up, I just use one spool of filament. I basically use a I never said a Chinese product, but Bamboo Labs is Chinese as well. But a competitor product called Sunlu, I buy their filament because it's significantly cheaper. And at the end of the day, it's what I believe to be a comparable sort of product. Like, I don't think it's an inferior filament in any way. But anyway, there has been a lot of talk about whether these changes would result in people needing to buy just the Bamboo Labs filament, but Bamboo Labs have said that that is not the case, that these changes are around security for the network connections, and that people will still be able to use independent filament. So long story short, I don't believe it's going to impact what I do. Now, that doesn't mean that the changes they've made haven't been communicated well. I think they've been communicated poorly, and it doesn't mean that people don't have genuine concerns, especially if they use third-party software. And if you buy a printer, it's your right to use third-party software as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, it doesn't look like there's going to be any immediate impact on what I do, as long as they don't change things again, I'll still continue to use the Bamboo printer and Bamboo Studio and Sunlu filament, which is pretty much the combo of what I do. The legs are going to be much easier to do than this belt, which is why I'm tackling the belt first. The belt has a lot of things hanging off it. Do love this design with the skulls, especially in this size format. Like I was saying before, you can really see the detail. So I'll obviously put a lot of time and effort into getting this to all look as good as it does. There are several other trolls in the collection, but I'm not going to turn this into a troll channel, so I was thinking to maybe mix it up and do something a bit more science fiction-y as my next project, but I still do have several other printed projects to work on, so see how we go. But just felt like getting back to a large format, or larger format almost. Well, that's the difficult part done. It's the loincloth. Now for the feet. I don't think there's anything up high. No, it's all just some kind of the skin, so I'll make that a dark red or a brown, maybe even a black. Maybe a black. Probably. You don't want to let your brushes sit with paint on them because it dries and hardens and stuffs up your brushes. So there was just a couple of small areas on the belt that I couldn't get to with this size brush. So there, I reckon it's a bit too. Don't do that. Bound to happen though. I mean, it is just colour blocking, and that's not even the final colour of the skin, so it's no big deal. In fact, this might not even be the final colour that I use, because these wraps here are holding in this, which is more like a fur or skin or something, so I might even end up using the colour that I use on the top is on these little bits on the top and bottom of the boots to keep that kind of consistent, but doesn't hurt having this painted brown for whatever colour that ends up being. And it's still sufficient for a colour block. You do see layer lines a bit more from the 3D printer when you get to this size of model, but it's not something I'm overly concerned with. If you've got a model like, say for example, the Mandalorian is a very hard model to paint with 3D printed, especially filament 3D printed models, because it's supposed to have really super smooth metal plating, and 3D printed lines just look like shit on that sort of output. So you know, you tend to use spot putty and other things to try and get it as smooth as possible, and you sand that, and you go again and you sand that, and you do that multiple times to get as smooth a plating as you can. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest, but that's the model that you want. So yeah, you tend to worry about layer lines a lot more with a model like that. With something like a troll that's big and kind of not so detailed, you don't really care or mind if there are lines here. It's just is what it is. At least that's the way I see it. But definitely you can get nicer detail without the layer lines on resin printers, but the negatives of resin printers are just so huge. I've never had anything to do with them myself because I'm just not interested in dealing with all those harmful chemicals. But like everything else, the technology changes, and no doubt they will come out with something that does even better quality for prints and doesn't require any harmful chemicals or UV curing or replacing the build plates. I mean, there's just so many negatives with resin printing. I'm definitely strongly in Team Filament camp. It would be cool to work with some other materials though. I mean, some of the newer printers can start to get to quite hot temperatures, so it opens up other materials, but it would be cool to get to play around with things like carbon fibre and metal, and I'm sure that all of that will happen in time as the technology grows and gets cheaper too. Cheap is also always good. Like that latest Prusa 3D printer is a beast, but a 2 tool head version in Australian dollars is like nearly $4,000. You know, just can't justify that when I can get an A1 for about 750, I believe, is what I paid for mine. You can get 5 or 6 of those versus one that changes its tool head, which is very fancy technology. Don't get me wrong, I think it's awesome technology. And that's the sort of thing that I would use if I had it. Like, the reason why I didn't get an AMS, as I think I've said before, one of the reasons is because there's so much wasted filament. So it's terrible for the environment, and also all those changing and purging adds a significant amount of time to your 3D prints. So just not interested in all of those negatives, thank you, so I didn't get an AMS. But this new Prusa one, as I understand it, it actually has different hot ends, so it's much quicker. There's virtually no waste, or minimal waste. There's just a purge tower. And yeah, it's an awesome bit of technology, but it is quite expensive. So I would, I looked at the 2 tool head one specifically because I paint my model, so I'm not interested in outputting a painted or, plastic coloured model. That just has zero interest for me. But 2 specifically would be awesome because you could have your model in one colour and your supports in another, and make it very easy to determine what is model and what is support, because when all the supports are attached, it can be sometimes quite hard to figure out in the model when you're like seeing a small part of it, and it's like, is that model or is that support? Whereas if you could print them in 2 completely different colors, obviously that makes it much easier to figure out what is support to be ripped off and what you don't want to touch. So I think that kind of technology would be cool to have, but I'm not spending nearly $4,000 to get it. More. We need more. It might just about do it though. A little bit brutal on this poor brush, I think. So that's a skull. Okay. Don't need to paint that brown. Alrighty, that is the leg and loincloth area of the troll model. So here's a little bit of colour blocking done, and I will keep on keeping on. I'll also do the fur there and this probably in the same brown as well, just to kind of get some layer of paint on there, and that will be the final colours, but I will leave it there for now. So as always, thank you very much for watching. So here is the colour blocking finished for the model, and we've got the brown on the metallic parts as well, and I've decided to go with black for the fur on the boots as well as the fur on the top of the body. So just added the black down there. You can see I've also added the fur around the arm part. The other arm of course is just metal, so that will end up being metal, but yeah, it's looking right.